Madeline Davis and Taylor Paumen with CTV here in Indianapolis, Indiana, where we are covering the men's NCAA tournament. As you may know, CSU did play in the tournament yesterday, as well as two other Mountain West teams. So we're going to kind of break down those Mountain West matchups and talk about what happened and maybe why the Mountain West wasn't as successful this year as we would have hoped they would be. So Taylor, let's just jump right into it.
Yeah.
Let's start with the CSU matchup. What did we see in the CSU matchup? What did we like? What did we not like?
Oh, well, I think most fans definitely liked the first half more than the second. But the first half was filled with great three-point shooting, great defense. They were in the lanes, getting steals. Kendall Moore was amazing with his handling and getting back on offense for fast break plays. Unfortunately, the second half was lacking most of that.
Yeah, the second half, I'm not really sure what happened. Just like they didn't have the same energy that they had in the first half.
Or the whole season.
Yeah, it was a little interesting. I think that part of it, I don't want to say that the crowd played any part of it, but I wouldn't be surprised because, I mean, we were obviously there. I was on the floor. I was right next to the CSU bench as well, and so that was an interesting experience. Just like seeing them so excited, and then all of a sudden just the energy just from the bench just dropped. But, I mean, Michigan didn't make a single three in the first half. They didn't make one three-pointer, and then they come out in the second, and they come out a little stronger. They were starting to get there at the end of the first half, because CSU had like a 15-point lead at one point, and then
Michigan... they were up 9 at half.
7.
7.
Yeah, Michigan brought it within 7 at the half. And so then they came out, and there was... I don't remember who it was, but whoever hit the three in the corner.
The fans just...
It didn't feel like there were many Michigan fans there, but as soon as that three hit, the stadium just erupted. It erupted, and there was so much noise and cheering for Michigan.
Different kind of energy than the first half.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think that boosted Michigan immensely in the second half and kind of started to deteriorate.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't want to say that it was all of that, and I think that there
were good things in the second half for
and I think that there were a lot of factors that played into it, but like David Roddy said in his press conference, Michigan is Michigan.
Yep.
And they're a power team, and they have historically a good basketball program. I mean, they were a Final Four team last year.
They were seeded number 1 last year.
Yeah, they were. They were a 1 seed, and they were preseason top 5. So they were expected to do well this season. They didn't have a great regular season.
It seemed like this season for Michigan was a little bit of a rebuilding year. They had a very young starting
They do have
line.
3 out of the 5 starters were freshmen, and one of them was a sophomore. It was 3 freshmen, 1 sophomore, 1 grad student were the starters.
And CSU's lineup is filled with juniors and seniors.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. The first half was interesting in the sense that the Rams have no experience in that.
They don't.
The squad doesn't.
No, they don't.
But they showed like they did in the first
half.
Yeah, the
first half, they just came out and everything was clicking. I mean,
Deshaun had 4 amazing deep threes. He had half of the 3-point count.
No, they couldn't miss. And then in the second half, something happened, and the production just wasn't as strong. I don't know. I think I would have liked to see a little bit more from David Roddy. I felt like
I agree.
I don't know if he was just nervous or...
Yeah, I mean, only 13 points is not what you need to bring when you're playing in the March Madness.
And then there was all that foul trouble. I mean, both Isaiah Stevens and David Roddy fouled out.
Yes, later in the game, and the free throw count. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, the free throws. I mean, Nico Medved said something in his press conference about it. CSU just wasn't getting foul calls. They just weren't.
So Michigan had 19. They made 19 out of 22 free throws, and CSU
made 5 out of 7.
Only 7 attempts, and
they didn't even have a free throw attempt until like 8 minutes into the second half.
It's crazy, and if CSU had gotten the same amount of attempts as Michigan, it would have been a different story.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially in the second half.
Yeah, it was foul trouble really hurt the Rams yesterday.
Inevitably, it happened, but like you said in the post-conference, Roddy is ready to come back next season.
They're all ready to come back, so.
He said once he heard that buzzer, he was already thinking of next season and what it's going to take to be more of a threat come postseason.
Yeah, I'm really glad, though, that the team isn't going to change that much. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's potentially 3 leaving seniors.
So who do you think is going to fill up those spots next year?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know, to be honest.
I'd love to see more of Jalen Lake.
Yeah, I think that Jalen Lake has a lot. I think that he can kind of go into a more like Adam Thistlewood role. Mm-hmm. I think that he can be, we saw it a little bit yesterday. Mm-hmm. He hit a couple threes.
Yeah, I think he's great on the outside.
Yeah, I think that he could be put into that sort of Adam Thistlewood role. I am not sure about who is going to fill the spot for Kendall.
We see a lot of Isaiah Rivera coming out every now and then. I think personally he has a lot more growth that needs to happen.
I agree.
Building more confidence, being stronger on defense, and driving in, taking those shots when he's open.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like he's a little sporadic on the court. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it doesn't feel. I feel like when I'm watching him, he doesn't work as a team. He kind of makes his own decisions sometimes, and sometimes they're great. I mean, we saw it in. I think it was one of those later games in the season. It was one of the big games. Maybe it was Wyoming, and he had a foul or something. Mm-hmm. He had something, but then a couple plays later, he like took a charge, and it was huge for the team.
Yeah.
And it really changed the momentum. And so he has that. He has some of that. He just hasn't found it consistently.
Absolutely. Everyone needs big plays, and especially if the Mountain West Conference is going to be as strong next year as it is this year. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of the Mountain West adjusts next year, considering how poorly we did in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the Mountain West did not have a particularly strong outing this year in the NCAA tournament, as everyone was gone in the first round or before the first round if you're Wyoming. But I think it was good for the Mountain West. I think it was what they needed.
Some exposure.
Yes. People know who they are now, and so they can come back. And the thing about the Mountain West is all of these teams are pretty young. Mm-hmm. None of them are super, I mean, Boise's really young. They've got some, like, most of their star players are going to come back. Wyoming has a couple seniors. You know, Hunter Maldonado's a senior. Mm-hmm. But, you know, Graham Ike, he's only a sophomore. Yeah. So they have more time as well.
A lot of players still have time to grow. Yeah.
San Diego State, they're a little more like CSU. They're not quite as young as I would say maybe like Boise mm-hmm. or some of the more like role players are on Wyoming. Right. But Matt Bradley's coming back for another year, so
I think a huge part in it too that I was reminded yesterday is that this is the first kind of normal season we've had in 2 years.
This is the first normal season for a lot of these players. Mm-hmm.
Most of the players too, it was their first time for the Rams this season, like playing in the pit. New Mexico and like Roddy and Stevens, that was their first time ever being there. Yeah,
or going to Viejas and playing in San Diego. Mm-hmm. I mean, San Diego it's a super hard place to play.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, they played there last year, and obviously that was fantastic. You know, 26-point comeback, mm-hmm. but there were no fans, and that changes things immensely.
As we definitely saw that for the Rams this year.
Yeah,
they got a lot of energy boosts from the Ram Nation and fans showing up, having 5 consecutive sold-out games.
Yeah, I mean that was the most in program history. I definitely think that this program is building in the right direction.
Absolutely.
And
with Nico being here for several more years now.
I was going to say, I mean, with Nico Medved signing that big extension, obviously he cares and he wants to build this program. Mm-hmm. and he likes what he's already built, and so he wants to build off of that, which really excites me as a Ram fan.
Absolutely, and seeing Roddy next year, hopefully again in green and gold, would just his senior year is gonna be amazing.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And I think he needs his senior year.
I think he needs a senior year as well. In the press conference yesterday, he was talking. There were some questions asked. He said something about his senior year and coming back, but then later in Nico Medved's press conference, Nico was asked about whether or not he, what's the deal with David Roddy? Is he going to come back? And basically, Nico Medved said that he's going to explore his options and he's going to see, and they're going to push him to explore his options because obviously he
wants to do his best for his career.
Yes, and David Roddy is on the radar, and so he will probably go.
I think one more year though for him will just absolutely accelerate everything that he's already good at, and then really pinpoint the parts that he needs to work on. Free throws. He has not been very consistent in free throws.
No, I mean, but still, he's like a 70% free throw shooter or something. Yeah. But CSU is just so strong in that area.
Absolutely.
I mean, Isaiah Stevens, he's like a 90% free throw shooter.
And Kendall Moore is always
Kendall Moore is
locked
really
in.
High. Yeah, Kendall Moore, John Tonje, Chandler Jacobs, they're all very, very good at free throws.
So then that losing Kendall and Jacob, these other Rams need to continue their greatness in that area, but know that there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when it comes to filling those roles, I wouldn't mind CSU looking into the transfer portal and trying to find little more veteran.
Yeah.
Try and find someone like Chandler Jacobs, who, even though he came in for a year, I mean, he was a huge
impact,
huge part of why they made it this far. Mm-hmm. And
I think too, it's important for Nico and his coaching staff to really consider personalities too, and I think that they do.
I definitely.
The Rams are just an all-around, outside of basketball, great group of guys, and personality shows on the court. We had no real issues throughout the whole season.
No, and
mixed emotions.
And when you look at the Rams as a team, I mean, they are a homegrown team. Mm-hmm. They have 2 transfers on the team right now, 2, and unfortunately, Chandler Jacobs will not be with us, but the other transfer will still be on the team.
Absolutely.
And so, everybody else was recruited by Nico Medved or was a walk-on, and so that just shows the bond that they've created as a team.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's really uncommon these days with the transfer portal. It's uncommon to have a homegrown team like that, and so that just shows the success of the coaching and recruiting staff at CSU. The fact that they just have this homegrown team and they're so good. And so, imagine if they just got 1 or 2 more experienced guys
and
to
they
add
can
on
just
to that.
fit in right into the mix. I'm excited to see how maybe James Morse can come up next season. I think he had some really great potential this season.
Yeah, he had that 3 or 4 game stint from San Diego State to really the loss at UNLV. Him and David Roddy, there was just something clicked.
Yeah.
Something clicked, and they were unstoppable. I mean, James was averaging close to 10 points a game, and he wasn't missing.
Yeah, and especially coming off the bench like that.
Yeah.
And just immediately taking it to the floor and putting in what he can do for the team.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the bench this year.
I was too.
The bench was very good. I mean, they were playing pretty much a 10-man roster for over half the season.
Yeah.
Which is really rare.
And it just goes to show that next season can be just as good.
Yeah, it just shows the depth of the team. Because there are a lot of juniors on the team. There's going to be a fair amount of seniors, but
there might be a rebuilding year after next year.
There could be, but there are
That's when you bring up those
there
other
are a lot
players.
of there are younger players like James Morse, who he is a redshirt sophomore, but because of the COVID year, I mean, he's actually in his freshman year of eligibility.
And then Jalen
Lake, Jalen Lake is a freshman. Isaiah Rivera is only a sophomore. So they have the depth. They just need to develop
building
a little
off
bit
of
more.
it.
But
And I think that is really good for these younger players, like Lake and Rivera and Morris, to get exposed to environments like the NCAA so that they know what more to expect come next year and following seasons.
Yeah, and I also think that it's the fact that CSU has been kind of a homegrown team, and the fact that they weren't that successful when the seniors on the team were those underclassmen, they can help guide, which I think is really, really important. Because there are some teams where the freshmen come in and the freshmen they're stars already. You know, they're only playing because they have to play a year before they go into the draft. Like that's just rules, and so they have to do that. Whereas, you know, Kendall Moore and Adam Thistlewood, you know, they're seniors now and they're fantastic. I mean, this was probably Kendall Moore's best year.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Adam Thistlewood had a great season last year, but
yeah, he struggled with injuries a bit.
Okay.
He had some injuries in the middle of the season, and that kind of took him out a little bit.
It was really good to see him get a couple minutes in at the end of yesterday's game. Considering the result of the game, it was good that those seniors got some time in.
Yeah,
to close out their career at CSU.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But I think just like having them be on the team and having them start at the bottom and kind of work their way up. I mean, I realized when they were freshmen, they were kind of the stars of the team.
Yeah.
But the team wasn't where it is now.
Absolutely.
And so they've definitely improved as the team has improved. And so I think that it's just important to have that leadership on the team.
Everything is a learning lesson, and I think that yesterday's game showed that and probably cut them deep enough to really motivate them for next season.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it last year after the NIT. I mean, they were fourth in the NIT last year, and they came back and they had one of the best seasons in program history. I mean, this was the best seed they had ever been.
Yes.
In the NCAA tournament.
It's really exciting to know what holds in the Rams' future and see how well they can continue to grow. And I think all of them will, including Nico and the whole staffing team, will just continue to see how much potential their group has.
I agree. I think that it is an exciting time to be a fan of Rams basketball.
Even though the season was cut a little bit shorter than we anticipated, at least Ram fans anticipated, it seemed like majority of the nation was expecting this upset, even though it just, we really thought that we were, and if we had kept our momentum through that second half, it would have been a different story.
But, you know, once again, it's where experience comes into play.
Yeah.
This Michigan team is a team that expected to be here. They expected to be higher than this. So this is, you know, they do play on that bigger stage.
Absolutely.
But it is good and important to get the Mountain West and CSU out there just so that they're, you know, they're more prepared. And they can come back next year. They can realize what they did here. They can come back. They can improve, and they'll make it farther.
I think it'll be really cool to see conference play again next year.
Yeah.
How all of the Mountain West teams that made it into the tournament this year, or even not with Wyoming, they can just take all of this as a learning experience, and they have that experience now to push them through the rest of next season.
Yeah, I think I'm really excited for Mountain West basketball in the future. I think that it's a very strong conference, and I'm glad that, you know, they got to show it a little bit, even if they didn't make it that far in the NCAA tournament. They still made it to the NCAA tournament.
Exactly, and that's what matters. The work that all of these teams put in such a tough conference that I think a lot of these bigger schools weren't expecting.
Yeah.
As far as conference play, can use that, and I think every team learns from each other.
I agree.
And can build more strength and confidence to become more of a threat for postseason next year.
Yeah, for sure.